Welcome back to the channel, my name is Jack. Freewell sent me a bunch of gear from their brand new just launched Sherpa series, which is all accessories made for mobile shooting and filmmaking on the go, with some pretty clever ways of mounting. They've made some magnetic filters, anamorphic lenses, an all-in-one grip. This thing has so many different ways you can use it, and a MagSafe case to mount it all to and build your shooting rig from. There'll be links to everything in the description so you can follow along, so let's get right to it. First up, we've got the case. This is kind of the foundation of the whole Sherpa system. The anamorphic lenses and all the filters mount to it. It comes in this black and blue finish. Freewell starting out with cases for the 13 Pro and Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, but they did tell me that they'll be looking to expand this in future, not just to other iPhones, but also to other brands too. And they'll be making an adapter so you can mount all of these lenses and filters to pretty much any smartphone if they don't make a case for your particular model. A few things to note: the case is made from a hard plastic, but it does have some flex to it. It covers all the buttons with speaker cutouts on the bottom, and it does wrap around the front of the phone just a little bit for some protection when your phone is face down. On the left side, there's these two little holes for threading through a wrist strap. Maybe it's just me, but I do like being able to add a wrist strap to a case to save my phone from a drop. It has a ring of magnets built into the back, so it works with all of your MagSafe accessories, MagSafe batteries, chargers, and MagSafe mounts like this one from Moment. This is the lens mount here. It's made from metal and it's fixed in place. This is for mounting the anamorphic lenses too, which we'll see in a moment. But also, they're Sherpa filters. Freewell's got a pretty cool magnetic filter system going on here, which makes it super quick and easy to mount the filters to your phone and switch between them when you're shooting. Freewell sent me 3 filters, a variable ND, a circular polarizer, and a snow mist filter as well. All 3 come boxed the same. They come in a magnetic carry case. They also give you a cleaning cloth, that's always welcome, along with a filter guide booklet, which is pretty handy actually, especially if you're new to using filters. It's got a load of info on all of the different filter types, telling you what they do if you're a bit unsure. Inside the case is the variable ND with a rubber filter cap on the one side for some protection. I've talked a bit about NDs before on the channel, but just briefly, NDs reduce the amount of light coming into the sensor, allowing you to shoot at slower shutter speeds, meaning you get more motion blur in your video footage, making it look smoother and more cinematic. It'll be less choppy and less stuttery. This is a variable ND2 to ND32 filter, which means that you can twist it to reduce the light transmission by 1 stop through to 5 stops of light reduction. And there are some stops printed on the side as a guide. But the coolest thing about this filter is how it mounts to the Sherpa case. It's magnetic, so it literally just snaps on in a second and then you're ready to shoot. And this has got to be the best filter mounting solution that I've seen yet for phones. There's no need to slide on a filter mount that covers part of the screen. You can just snap it onto the case and you're away. All you need to do is make sure that the Freewell logos are lined up on the mount and on the filter. The magnets here are pretty strong too. Even as I wave the phone around, the filter stays put. This is their circular polarizer, also known as a CPL filter. And these help reduce some of the glare that you might get from glass or water that's being reflected at certain angles towards the camera. Again, you can rotate the filter, so here looking at this glass, you can see that the sky is reflected in it. But as I rotate the filter, it reduces that reflection, so now you can actually see through the glass, which is pretty cool and a handy tool to have when you're shooting. And lastly, this is the diffusion snow mist filter. This one doesn't rotate, but if you look closely, you'll see it has some almost like speckles all over the glass. And what this does is it smoothens the highlights and reduces the overall contrast and sharpness of the image for a bit more of a shot on film look. Unlike the ND and the CPL, the snow mist filter just snaps directly onto the Sherpa case. They do have a couple of other filters in the Sherpa series too, and if you're thinking of picking up a few of these, I'd also recommend getting this filter case, just so you can keep them all together instead of carrying around lots of separate plastic cases. I bought this a while ago. It's great for any other filters that you might have too. It fits up to 82mm size filters, and I'll link to it in the description as well. And one more thing, Freewell has actually thought about ways of trying to future-proof the Sherpa series to make sure that the filters still work with any future phones. So if, for example, the next iPhone has a similar camera system to the 14 Pro or Pro Max, you might only need to buy a new case. But if there are some big changes and the cameras get a lot bigger, for example, there are screws on the back of all of their magnetic filters, which means that the backplate can be replaced with a larger one if it comes to it. Next up, let's take a look at the Anamorphic Lens and the filter set that comes with it. This lens has a really nice solid metal build to it. If you've never heard of an anamorphic lens, these are pretty cool actually. They have cylindrical lens elements which squeeze an even wider field of view onto the camera sensor. And then once de-squeezed, you get this super cinematic wide look with black bars at the top and the bottom of the frame, which naturally means that you get some lens distortion and some blurring at the edges, just like you see in those films that are shot on anamorphic lenses. And it really adds to that cinematic look. This is a 1.55x anamorphic compared to the 1.33 anamorphics that I've shown on the channel before, like this from Moment. And this just means that with the Freewell you get an even wider shot than on a Moment anamorphic. This is my first time using a 1.55x actually, so it's been a lot of fun shooting with it and experimenting with that wider look. It's been pretty chilly here in the UK this last week or so, and I did forget my gloves when I went out, so I'm sorry for any shaky footage. My hands were so cold, but nonetheless we got through it, and I think that I got some pretty cool looking shots with this lens. You'll even get some really sweet looking lens flares from any bright lights in the scene too. This is a blue flare anamorphic, hence the blue tint that you're seeing on the glass. But Freewell does also make a gold flare version too. So depending on what sort of look you're going for, you could go for more of a sci-fi look with the blue flares like here, or for a more natural and neutral looking look with the gold flare. Something I have noticed though is that there is some very slight vignetting or darkening at the edges of the frame. I talked about this recently in my Moment lens video. Some of their lenses have this issue too with the new 14 Pros because of how big the cameras and the sensors are getting on these new iPhones. The vignetting on the Freewell Anamorphic is much less obvious than on the Moment lenses, but it is something that I've been seeing in my footage, so I did just want to point that out. And I did have stabilization turned off when I was shooting to avoid any jelly wobble when panning. You can mount the lens over the telecamera too, which is great for getting even closer to a subject. I did find that the iPhone finds it difficult to focus on things way off in the distance when you've got it mounted over the telly, but things in the midground and the foreground are just fine. This lens comes with a carry case. Opening it up, we've got the anamorphic on the left and 4 fixed ND filters ranging from ND8 up to ND64. There's also a UV filter which is already mounted to the lens, and this can help reduce some of the ultraviolet light coming into the camera, but more so it can act as just an extra layer of protection for the lens glass, protecting it from bits of dirt or sand or anything that could scratch it when you're shooting outdoors. And all the filters in this set mount to the lens by just screwing them on. Now, when you're shooting with the anamorphic, or even with the filters, it's best to shoot with an app that gives you manual control over the camera settings, so you can get everything locked off and keep your white balance set and your shutter speed, and then you can just keep everything consistent between your shots. I like to shoot with Filmic Pro. This also supports de-squeezing anamorphic footage in the app. You can find that under Settings, Hardware, scroll down a little bit and then you'll find a 1.55x button. And with this enabled, both the preview and the save footage files are de-squeezed for you. There's no need to do it in post. It's also best to turn off the video stabilization so you don't get any weird jelly effects when you're shooting. Let me know in the comments what apps you use with your anamorphic lenses. And once again, like the magnetic filters, on the back of the anamorphics are some screws so that the bayonet mount can be replaced with a bigger one if needed in future for newer phones. The last thing to show you is this, and this is low-key one of my favourite things in the Sherpa gear set. This is a camera grip, but it's also a cold shoe mount, an Anker mount for a tripod. You can fold out the handle and go into rig mode. There's 3/4" threads on the top for even more mounting options. Extend the handle for selfie stick mode. It's just a super versatile bit of kit. It clamps onto your phone with or without a case. It's Bluetooth enabled with a shutter button, which you can also slide off and move from the grip position for when you're using it in selfie stick mode. And it just makes it so much easier holding your phone when you're out shooting, even on a freezing cold day with no gloves. It's just a lot more comfortable and a lot easier to hold with one hand as well. So that's been a quick look at Freewell's new Sherpa series. This has only just launched, but I think that it has a lot of potential. I'm hoping to see Freewell expand on it even more and maybe make some other lenses, maybe a wide, a macro, maybe a tele as well, maybe some 1.33 anamorphics for a cinemascope look. And also just see them expand it to other iPhones and phone brands to open it up to even more people that like to shoot on the go with their phone. And I do really love those magnetic filters. They're so easy and so quick to mount. I am always using my phone to grab some quick shots for my videos, and I do like to use an ND when I can to keep my footage looking smooth so that it doesn't stick out from the rest of the footage. Thank you to Freewell for sending me this gear. I'll put links to everything in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, you can let me know by hitting the like button. Drop your comments or questions below if you have any, and if you want to see more tech videos from me, hit subscribe and the bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.